Esta é a nova Turbo Levo geração 4. Passaram-se 4 anos desde o último lançamento da geração 3, que foi em 2021, e desta vez viemos até à Madeira para a apresentação internacional desta nova bicicleta. Esta é a bicicleta que carrega mais rápido do mercado. A S-Works vem com um carregador rápido que tem várias funções, mas o que é mais impressionante e o que gosto mais é que conseguimos carregar a bateria dos 0 aos 80% numa hora. Em relação ao quadro e geometria, a geometria na verdade não alterou muito, eles alteraram só aqui um grau de ângulo no tubo do assento, o que permite, que nos dá mais tração a subir. A bicicleta está mais rígida, principalmente na rigidez torcional, tem um novo compartimento da bateria em que abre lateralmente em vez da anterior, né, que abria aqui na parte de baixo. E uma das vantagens de estar nestas apresentações é que temos um contacto direto com as pessoas que trabalham na marca, e neste caso vou falar com o Marco, que é o responsável tecnológico de tudo o que está aqui. Marco, you're the head of turbo development.
Yes.
Man, let's talk a little bit about the connectivity, about the app. I'm very curious about these new changes. I love technology, and I really love to know that now the bike is visible on Find My devices on Apple.
Correct,
right?
yes. So we worked actually together with Apple to make this happen. So
That's
Apple,
incredible.
yeah, it's super cool. So Apple basically offers some software you can actually apply if you have the correct chipset on your device. You can actually apply the Apple software that this particular display is Find My enabled. So in your Apple phone, you compare it to Apple Find My, and it basically beacons as a bike.
Yeah. I thought it was a hardware thing, like an AirTag.
No, we did not include an AirTag. The AirTag has certain electronics inside, right?
Yeah.
We have the same electronics inside here.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's how it is. We did not just include an AirTag. The Find My actually lifts off this power battery, so it doesn't run out of battery. An AirTag runs out of the battery. So in here we have the software from Apple enabled inside the display.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So thieves will get a hard time now.
Yes, they will have a very hard time, and it actually works really well.
Okay. And what about the new features on the app, like auto start, auto recording, and unlock the bike?
Yeah, we have a lot of features. So some of them, the great ones are the lock, right? You can actually enable a system lock, which makes the bike useless to thefts. And you can make this auto now, so whenever you turn the bike off, it goes automatically into lock state. And whenever you turn the bike on, it senses your phone in your pocket, sees your phone and unlocks automatically. That's when you have the auto unlock on, right?
Yeah,
Those are the main features a lot of riders are actually using. Of course, we have a lot more, such as auto start. So when you go out for a ride, you no longer need to remember that you need to start the ride and stop the ride. We have both auto start, stop.
Yeah.
So as soon as the bike connects to the phone, it starts recording a ride, starts recording your fitness stats, saves it at the end without you needing to stop the ride.
Wow, that's
all automatically.
So nice. I guess Specialized is the only brand that has this, right?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, but
so,
I'm not aware of anybody else who has something similar. Of course, we have all the old features like smart control, where you basically plug in the time you want to ride with the bike and it adjusts its heart rate control, all kinds of good features. You can customize the entire screen, the display screen, the brightness, all of it is basically adjustable through the application.
So, and what about the micro tune?
So microtune, in the past we introduced a microtune to the Levo in 2000, I think if I remember, 20. Came as a software update. And microtune basically is you can change your motor support in 10% increments. The sound engineering, so it takes a lot of work and a lot of engineering devices and understanding what creates the sound, and obviously the electric machine which creates sounds, the gearbox which creates sounds, but also how you actually decouple the motor from the frame. Yeah. There's many things you can do, and what we did is all of them. So we potted the stator that's inside the motor. That's basically the one standing with the windings and the coils. If you pot that means you have less air gaps. With less air gaps, you have less of that whining noise, that high-pitched kind of whining noise. This bike doesn't have that anymore. And then we also did a diamond-like coating, like a hard drive coating, which changes the friction of the metal gears. It makes out of metal gears basically a friction you would typically have with plastic gears. But obviously you still have the metal material, so you have a long lifetime, long endurance, but with low friction, which makes the sound absolutely perfect, but also increases motor efficiency. Last not least, we decoupled the entire gearbox from the engine housing into one side, so you have way less structure-borne noise, which then basically results in less airborne, right? So you hear less, because at the end of the day, this frame is also a member. And all the noises produced in the engine, they translate into the frame. So the better you can decouple them, the less sound you hear in your ears.
You give the example of the guitar. That's a really good example.
Yeah, guitar is a great example, right?
Because they amplify the sound, and here you're doing the opposite.
Yeah.
As far as I
That's correct.
Yesterday, you just remove air and put
solid epoxy, basically. That's decoupling, right? So we basically stiffen it, and with that we have a very good sound. And you noticed it. We climbed 1,400 meters today. It was the same the entire day.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter when it gets warm or cold. It's always the same. Yesterday it was the same. Today it was the same. It's the same on all 20 riders we had.
Yeah, that's great.
And we're super happy with what we got.
That's great, Marco. Thank you so much. Thank you.
See you tomorrow again.
See you tomorrow. E depois desta entrevista fomos dar mais uma volta e logo a seguir tive outra oportunidade espetacular de entrevistar o Buck, que é o Product Manager desta nova Levo. So Buck, thank you so much for your time here on this interview, and thank you so much for this.
Of course.
I'm really impressed. We had a lot of fun riding it, you too.
Yes, of course. That was a lot of fun.
And so let me start by a personal question. How does it feel to release this to the world? Because you're working on it like 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, it's always like maybe a little bit like a first date. You're pretty nervous, you know, because all this excitement's built up. You spend a lot of time, not just me, but the entire team. And you have the ideas that you chased and the things you wanted to accomplish. You got the bike built. Now the big thing is like people's reaction. Are they going to have fun on it? Are they going to like it? The way it rides, the way it looks, the features that it has. So it's a big, kind of moment of truth.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And this bike is a big challenge to produce, I can imagine, to develop. What is the biggest challenge or the biggest challenges that you've faced?
The biggest challenge for us is the sum of the whole project, right? So if we're, maybe some of our competitors buy a e-system off the shelf. So we don't do that. We develop our system, our remote, our batteries, our motors, displays, everything. So you've got so many moving parts that the responsibility falls on us to validate. So all of the testing, developing everything, trying to get the timelines to come together so we can produce on time. It's a huge challenge.
Big puzzle.
And we have the frame team working together with the system team. So the team is pretty massive and is keeping communication across the teams. It's a big ordeal.
I can imagine, or I cannot even imagine. And how about R&D? How do you guys develop your own proprietary things?
Well, like suspension, features in the bike and everything, we kind of start with putting a lot of focus on understanding what riders want. And part of that's talking to riders, visiting shops, understanding what they want, looking at what our competitors do. Maybe there's something they've thought of that's really cool that we hadn't thought of. And it's like, oh, how can we do that or make it even better? And so once we have those ideas and features in mind, we do a lot of prototyping for, like swap features, or in the case of like kinematic stuff that we want to pursue, we do a lot of building mules. So they're horribly ugly bikes, but they can let us ride and feel something without having to spend a year opening tooling to try something. So a lot of printing things, so we can rapidly prototype things like. On this bike, we had just a down tube printed with the whole battery mounting mechanism and trying different ways to mount the battery inside the down tube. Printed a lot of charge port doors, just a lot of things that interface together, printing doors to see how they fit and how that all goes together.
Oh, talking about that, so this year the battery, it has like the door is on the left side of the bike. And you said yesterday that the frame became more rigid. Right?
Well, how it started was we were looking like, how are we going to get the battery out easily? We could either do it on the down tube, on the bottom of the down tube, or we could do it on the side. What makes the most sense? We started with FEA, and structurally the engineers told us it makes more sense to go on the side. When we put the first test frame on Head Tube Ultimate, we were really surprised at how strong it was. So it's not necessarily that a huge stiffness increase, but a big strength increase.
Which is great. It's 2 in 1.
Exactly. So allowing the riders to fork up to a 180 fork on here. It's like, wow, this will be a really cool feature for some riders.
Yeah. And last question, let's talk a little bit about the Genie.
Yep.
So 80% of the parts comes from Floatex.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So if you have if you had an issue with it, it's more like 90%. Yeah. But like all the parts are interchangeable with that, so any shop could do any of the sleeve service or a rebuild or whatever you needed done.
Okay. So it's easy servicing, and to tuning it's also easier because it's nice to have a lot of features and a lot of stuff to tune in, but like you guys said yesterday, the high-speed compression, it's hard to test it, right? The tuning.
Yeah.
So this makes our life easier, or at least the average guy, because like you also said, a lot of people think they know a lot, but then in the end they don't, which is my case. But
I've been there too. You know, you start tuning and trying different things, and then you're like, oh man, I'm way off of where I should be. Bike's not feeling good at all.
Mais uma volta de bicicleta e mais uma entrevista muito especial.
Uma coisa que muita gente não sabe é que existe um português chamado Nelson Risso, que está aqui à minha direita e à vossa esquerda, que é o diretor de marketing da Europa do Sul, que é uma coisa espetacular, muito orgulho, Nelson. Então pronto, várias perguntas. Antes de mais, porquê a Madeira? É um orgulho ter um evento da Specialized na Madeira. Porquê que escolheram a Madeira?
Epá, Vasco, acho que não houve assim grande dúvida, porque eu tive numa ocasião, estava com a equipa global e estávamos a falar sobre a apresentação desta bicicleta à imprensa, e janeiro, Europa, frio, e perguntaram-me, onde é que é aqui um sítio, onde é que na Europa, em janeiro, nós podemos apresentar a bicicleta? Bom tempo, bons trilhos, nada melhor do que vir aqui para a Madeira.
E o pessoal que especialmente que veio do Reino Unido, estão habituados a descidas de 1 minuto ou 2, nós aqui descemos 15 minutos.
Estão todos completamente alucinados aqui com a ilha e de certeza que vão voltar, todos eles, de certeza absoluta.
Outra coisa, estou curioso, por que razão é que nós estamos em janeiro e a bicicleta só vai ser lançada em março? Porquê que tomaram essa decisão?
Abril,
ok.
Abril. Bem, nós desta vez quisemos fazer aqui um bocadinho diferente, ganhar aqui um bocadinho de tempo, e a ideia foi apresentar-vos para já a bicicleta com algum tempo de antecedência, já temos algumas unidades produzidas, dar-vos tempo, não só aqui, mas depois, à posteriori, vocês vão receber estas bicicletas para terem até abril ou até março, para poderem pedalar nas zonas onde normalmente pedalam, poderem comparar, poderem tirar dúvidas, desenvolver, ou seja, terem mais tempo também para produzir conteúdo e para dissecarem a bicicleta ao máximo. Outra questão também super importante para nós, que é no fundo conseguir ter mais bicicletas disponíveis no momento do lançamento. Isso é muito importante. No fundo criamos ali expectativa e as pessoas depois querem o produto e devem tê-lo.
Falando na expectativa, esta era uma das bicicletas que eu tinha a maior expectativa e acho que o mercado também. Qual é a tua expectativa em relação às vendas e à procura da nova Levo 4? Porque pessoalmente era das bicicletas que eu estava a esperar há mais tempo, né? Há 4 anos não havia assim um update grande.
Sim, a expectativa é grande porque bem, a bicicleta tem a Turbo Levo faz já 10 anos, que é muito tempo. Todas as gerações da Turbo Levo tiveram um êxito brutal. A Gen 3, a terceira geração, foi uma bicicleta que esteve sempre no topo de vendas das bicicletas.
Ainda é uma bicicleta
a nível
atual,
de escolha das bicicletas elétricas de montanha, e já passaram mais de 3 anos e as pessoas naturalmente estão sedentas para perceber o que é que a Specialized está a fazer para esta bicicleta tão importante. E este modelo, que vão todos poder ver com as explicações todas que tu vais aqui dar, é uma bicicleta completamente nova, geometrias, tecnologia, tanta coisa para contar, tanta coisa diferente. De certeza que a expectativa nossa é super elevada e vai ser um êxito brutal.
Nelson, muito obrigado.
Obrigado, Vasco. Obrigado.
E como não é todos os dias temos a oportunidade de estar com as pessoas que desenvolveram um modelo de bicicletas, eu decidi entrevistar realmente toda a gente e tentar transmitir-vos ao máximo o que eu passei nesta apresentação, por isso decidi também entrevistar o Todd.
What about the asymmetric frame? Why this year? Why did it change for this symmetric frame, especially here on the shock?
Yeah, well, when we did that first on Stumpy back in 2017, 2018, it's really to get like a good stiff connection between the hands and the feet and the front and the back of the bike, and that sidearm gave us that connection. As we moved into stump jumper, the Levo SL, Levo 4, we've packaged things a little bit differently. You'll notice we have a more robust link here.
Yes.
The upper link is much stiffer. It's a little bit better use of the kind of weight budget that we have to spend, but it also, the big thing was it allowed for more clearance for the packaging with the Genie shock because of that larger air can. And so that's why we ended up moving away from that and getting the stiffness out of the upper link and do the rest of that. Yeah.
And not such a technical question, but a personal question. What's the feeling for like revealing a new bike, a new model to the world?
Well, I mean, you know, these things are always in the works for, I don't know, years, right? Yeah, and so
4 years, right? Since the Gen 3 was released in 21.
And you know, Marco's team on the system side is always working on things even further out than that, and so you always have this itch to get out and tell people about it. So it's after being so long, it's one thing to work on something for a couple months, so you finally get to show somebody. After working on it for a few years, getting to show people is it's pretty awesome. It's nice to then finally not have to be secretive about something for so long. You can start talk openly about it. But yeah, it's just exciting to start to share it with people outside, and then also to get the feedback, right? You know, like we've been the only ones working on it with our field testers and the engineers and everybody, but to really start to get a sense for what did we nail, what do we need to look for the next one, where is this going, right? So so it's exciting to start to solicit the feedback for the next one, the next one, the next one. Yeah, sure.
And what was the biggest challenge by producing this new Levo?
Oh, I mean, there's just so much new,
many,
right?
Many
challenges,
like,
you know,
right?
It's our own motor, our own motor design, ground up. The battery is all new. Everything's new, right? You know, everybody's been doing e-bikes now for quite some time, but it's one thing to make a road bike or an analog mountain bike, but the minute you throw electricity into the mix, it's infinitely more complicated, and there's always something new that you didn't foresee. But I think the biggest thing, Marco's team, he has a gentleman on his team named Barna who is, you know, I liken him to like Neo sitting in front of the computer or one of those guys in the Matrix, and they look at all that code spilling down, and the rest of us are staring at it like, what the hell is that?
I saw it in the factory.
And he's like, sees exactly, you know, and he's the one who's really, Barna and the rest of Marco's team, like delivering. I'd say the hardest part is really how do you deliver the current? How do you inject it in the right way that feels natural? And I know that's an area that we continue to focus a bunch on, is making sure it feels natural. It's not just raw power. You know, power is pointless without control. And so I would say that's always the difficult part. But yeah, I think that's probably the one of the more difficult areas, and I think the area that the team's probably most proud of.
Tell us, what about the Genie shock absorber? You guys put a lot of love and hours into it. It seems that it's easier to adjust, right?
Yeah. So Genie, it started with, I'll try to give you the short version. It started with just seeing how the shock would perform if we just threw a bunch of volume at it. And don't worry about the bottom out, don't worry about the end stroke, just what happens when you add tons of volume. So we did that, and we're like, wow, this feels really good. Yeah, it's super harsh on the bottom out, but like the volume, the grip, the control is great. So we added more volume. We just kept doing it until we kind of found like the point of diminishing returns. And then Chance Farrow, who's the brainchild, the mastermind behind Genie, came up with the idea to shut it off at the end of the stroke with the ports. So the idea behind Genie was, how do you flatten the curve in the bump zone to get something that's more coil-like? So you get that nice supple absorption, you get good grip, good control, good traction. But you know, historically with an air shock, you either have to tune for a bottom out or tune for the bump zone, but you usually can't have both. And most people tune for the bottom out because it's the most uncomfortable. But a bottom out really only happens, what, 5-10% of a trail event, right? So you compromise the rest of your ride. So the beauty of Genie is you get that nice kind of more linear spring feel, more usable travel for any given hit compared to a standard air spring. But then the ramp at the end, when it cuts off that extra volume and you get that reduced volume, you get a nice smooth ramp. That's kind of the beauty of it. The simplicity of it is dead simple. The internals are mostly a stock float or float X, and the air spring is just those few extra pieces that make it unique to us. But the simplicity is, for most people, you just set the sag based on your rider weight in pounds, PSI, not kg.
Yeah.
And right out of the box, that's going to ride better for everybody straight away. And then for anybody that really wants to tune, you can independently tune the platform and the bump zone separate of the end stroke and the bottom out. So, and the tuning is really simple too. But for most people that don't want to crack into a shock, they don't have to, so it's going to ride great right out of the box.
And what about service?
Service is straightforward. It's, like I said, most of the internals are all standard. Damper is completely bone stock, standard Fox. All the parts, internals that are readily available now are the same in our Genie shocks. So there's nothing unique there. And this, from service, from an air spring side of things, it's no different. Same typical maintenance you would do on an air sleeve service interval. But yeah, after purchase support from Fox, all the same parts, minus the couple of things like the Genie airband, which aren't likely to ever kind of run into an issue. So the service is really straightforward and simple.
It's amazing. So, again, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Vasco.
Obrigado por estarem desse lado e até ao próximo vídeo. E não se esqueçam, subscrevam o canal.